Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. This time, we're going to take a close look at ON Semiconductor's Q3 2024 earnings call.
Yeah, they had a good quarter.
Really?
ON Semiconductor beat what analysts thought they would do for revenue, gross margin, and earnings per share.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and they did it even though the market's been kind of slow.
Oh, so they're doing well even though the whole industry isn't.
Exactly.
So what's ON Semiconductor doing right? How are they beating the trend?
Well, they're really focused on intelligent power and sensing solutions.
Okay.
And those are like really important parts of a lot of different tech, like electric vehicles,
Right.
factory automation, renewable energy systems, even like the data centers that are running all this AI stuff everybody's talking about.
So they've got their fingers in a lot of really important pies.
Yeah, they're right in the middle of some really fast-growing areas.
That's got to be good for business.
It is, but even with all that good stuff happening, there are still some challenges.
Okay, like what?
Well, the global semiconductor market is in what they're calling an L-shaped recovery.
L-shaped recovery. What does that mean?
Basically, instead of a quick bounce back, the market's kind of climbing slowly,
Well,
and there's a lot of uncertainty.
That's okay.
And one big thing that's slowing things down is inventory digestion.
Inventory digestion. What is that?
A lot of companies bought a bunch of components a while back,
Oh,
and now they're still working through all that inventory.
so they're not placing new orders.
Right. And that hurts on semiconductor because a big chunk of their revenue comes from the car industry and industrial applications.
I see. So less demand for cars means less demand for Olin's products.
Exactly.
And you mentioned EVs earlier. Are they being hit by the slowdown in electric car sales?
Definitely, especially outside of China.
Mm.
And that's a problem for Onomi because they make silicon carbide, or CC, which is a really important material for electric car powertrains.
So CDA is kind of a big deal for them.
Huge. It's a big part of their strategy.
And with EV sales slowing down, is that a problem for their CCA business?
Well, it's definitely slowed down the growth of their CCA revenue.
Okay.
But Onan isn't giving up. They're actually going all in on CC production.
What do you mean by all in?
They're doing something called vertical integration.
I'm not familiar with that term.
It means they're controlling more of the production process from getting the raw materials all the way to making the final product.
So they're doing everything in-house.
More and more, yeah.
Why are they doing that?
They want more control over quality, supply, and how much it all costs.
Makes sense.
It's like if you had a restaurant and you grew all your own ingredients, farm to table,
Right.
you'd know exactly what was going into your food and you could keep costs down.
So they're trying to become the farm-to-table of the semiconductor world.
In a way, yeah, they want that level of control over their CC production.
Is there anything that shows this approach is actually working?
Yeah, actually. They just qualified their 200 millimeter CC wafers.
Okay, and that's good.
It's great. It means they can produce more chips at the same time.
I see. Like using a bigger baking sheet to make more cookies at once.
Exactly. So even though there are challenges in the global market,
Right.
Onfan is making some really smart moves to position themselves for the future.
They seem to be betting big on Silis V. But with all the uncertainty in the global market, are there any bright spots?
Absolutely. While some markets are struggling, others are beaming. Like China's electric vehicle market, it's just exploding right now.
Really? Why is China doing so well when everyone else seems to be slowing down?
Well, China's government is really pushing EVs. They have a lot of policies and incentives to get people to buy electric cars. Plus, there's a lot of innovation happening with Chinese EV brands.
So how does this help on Semiconductor?
Well, they've got a strong position in the Chinese EV market,
Okay.
especially in something called the 800-volt architecture.
That's a new one on me.
It basically allows for much faster charging and is more efficient.
I see. So they're focusing on the cutting edge of EV technology in a market that's booming.
Exactly.
That's pretty smart. So even though the global EV market is a little shaky right now, Owen's got a pretty good thing going in China.
That's right.
What else is ON Semiconductor up to? What are they looking at for the future?
Well, another big area for them is data centers.
Oh, interesting.
And that's because data centers are using more and more power as cloud computing and AI keep growing.
Right. Everyone's talking about AI these days.
Exactly. And Onin wants to be a major player in providing power management solutions for data centers.
Okay, so how are they planning to do that?
They're developing all sorts of advanced technologies to handle the huge power demands of those massive data centers.
Is there any sign they can actually succeed in this new market? I mean, it seems pretty different from electric vehicles.
Well, they've already got some big wins.
Oh, like what?
They've got contracts with 3 of the 4 biggest data center operators in North America.
Wow. So their tech is going to be used in some of the largest data centers in the world.
Exactly. So they're well on their way to becoming a big player in that market, too.
It's really impressive how they're tackling these challenges and finding opportunities in new areas.
They're not just riding the wave, they're building their own surfboard.
Uh-huh. I like that. So they're facing some headwinds, but they're also making some really smart bets on the future. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Definitely. They're a company to watch. On's really putting their money where their mouth is with their strategy.
Yeah. How so?
Their financials in Q3 look really good. They brought in $1.76 billion.
Okay.
That's like a 2% increase from last quarter.
Not bad, especially with how things are going right now.
Right. And that growth is mostly because of how well their silicon carbide business is doing.
Makes sense.
And because their automotive segment, especially in China, is really strong.
So those bets they've been making are paying off.
They really are.
Okay, that's revenue.
Yeah.
What about their profits? Are they making money?
Oh, yeah. Their gross margin was 45.5%.
Solid.
It shows that they're serious about making money, even when the market is being a pain.
And what about their free cash flow?
That jumped up a lot, like 41% to $294 million.
Wow, 41%. That's huge. Why such a big jump?
Well, they're pretty much done with all the big investments they were making to expand capacity.
Gotcha. So they're spending less.
Exactly. And that means more cash is coming back into the business. They even lowered their long-term capital intensity target a lot.
So they're being more careful with how they spend their money.
Yeah, they are.
That's always a good sign. So what are they doing with all this extra cash?
Giving back to their shareholders, mostly.
Okay, how?
Over the last year, they returned 75% of their free cash flow through stock buybacks and dividends.
So they're taking care of their investors.
Big time. And they've set a goal to return 50% of free cash flow to shareholders over the long term.
Sounds like they're trying to find a good balance.
Yeah, investing for growth, but also rewarding the people who own their stock.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the positives, but every company has risks. What are some of the things that could go wrong for ON Semiconductor?
Of course, you're right. Well, we've already talked about how the economy is kind of sluggish,
Yeah.
and nobody's really sure what's going to happen with demand for EVs.
Right.
That could definitely slow them down.
Makes sense. Anything else investors should keep in mind?
Yeah, the silicon carbide market, it's growing like crazy. That also means more competition. Someone's got to keep innovating if
Yeah.
they want to stay on top.
So they can't just rest on their laurels.
Nope. And moving into these new markets like data centers, that's risky too.
How so?
That takes a lot of investment, and it could be a while before it really pays off.
So they're jumping into areas where they don't have as much experience.
Yeah, pretty much. They've had some good early wins,
Right.
but they really got to nail it if they want to make data centers a big part of their business.
So there are definitely some potential bumps in the road. Is ON Semiconductor doing anything to try to avoid those bumps?
Oh, yeah. They're not just sitting around waiting for things to happen.
So what are they doing?
Well, they're focusing on markets that are doing better than the overall semiconductor market.
It makes sense, like EVs and data centers.
Exactly. Those markets are helping to protect them from the ups and downs of the broader economy.
That's smart. What else are they doing?
They're also making strategic partnerships with some of their biggest customers.
Why?
Well, it guarantees that there's going to be demand for their products. Plus, these partnerships give them a better idea of what the market needs.
So it's all about building relationships.
Right. They're trying to reduce the impact of the market's short-term swings by forming these strong relationships with key players.
Makes sense. Anything else?
And they're constantly working on new products and innovating.
Why is that important?
Well, that helps them stay ahead of the competition.
Okay.
And even when the market isn't doing so well, it helps them keep their prices competitive.
So they're not just reacting to the market, they're shaping their own future.
Exactly. And they're doing it through these strategic investments and partnerships.
That's pretty impressive. So ON Semiconductor is clearly thinking long-term. What does their roadmap for the future look like?
Well, a big part of it is research and development. They know that to stay ahead of the game, they have to keep pushing the boundaries of technology.
Right. But to do all that R&D, They're going to need the capacity to actually manufacture all these new products.
That's right. They're expanding their manufacturing operations around the world.
Where are they focusing their expansion?
They're really focusing on the Czech Republic.
Interesting. Okay, so they've got the capacity. What markets are they going after?
Well, they're looking at EVs, renewable energy, industrial automation, and data centers.
Those all seem like solid bets.
They do. But they're not stopping there. They're also exploring new ways to use their sensing technologies in fields like robotics, healthcare, and smart cities.
Wow, that's a lot of different areas.
It is. But that's part of their strategy. By diversifying their revenue streams, they're making themselves less vulnerable to the ups and downs of any one particular market.
Kind of like the old saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. They're spreading their bets and building a stronger foundation for growth.
It's a great reminder that even in established industries, like semiconductors, there's still plenty of room for growth if you have the right strategy.
Right. And ON Semiconductor's journey is a great example of that. It's all about having a clear vision, being able to adapt to changes, and of course, executing effectively.
ON Semiconductor's story is a great reminder that it's not just about understanding the numbers, but also about understanding the bigger trends that are shaping our world.
Absolutely. And it's about understanding the companies that are leading the way. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what final thoughts would you leave our listeners with? So we've really gotten to On Semiconductor, looking at where they fit in, how they're doing financially, and where they see themselves going. What are the big takeaways here?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot to process.
I think there's a lot here for investors, or anyone really, who wants to understand what's going on in the tech world. Ein's done a great job, even though the market's not been that friendly.
Right.
And I think that's because they're really focused on those high growth areas, like EVs and data centers.
Right. And they seem to be running the company well, keeping their investors happy.
Exactly. It's like they're keeping one eye on what's happening right now and the other eye on the future.
I like that analogy. So it sounds like they found a good balance between navigating the current market and making strategic moves for future growth.
That's a good way to put it. They're not just reacting to what the market is doing today.
Right.
They're making smart decisions to take advantage of trends that are just starting to emerge and to position themselves as a leader in things like silicon carbide.
Right. They want to be the go-to company for that tech and the power management solutions that data centers need. But of course, no company is without risks. What are some things our listeners should be thinking about as ON Semiconductor's story continues to unfold?
That's a good point. I mean, the silicon carbide market's getting more and more competitive. So ON really needs to keep innovating if they want to stay out in front.
So they can't just keep doing what they're doing. They need to keep getting better.
Exactly. And then there's the whole geopolitical situation,
Right.
Especially with them expanding in China, things could happen that are totally out of their control.
That's always a risk when you're a global company.
It is.
It seems like ON Semiconductor's journey shows us that we need to do more than just look at the numbers.
Oh, yeah.
We need to understand the bigger picture, the forces that are changing the world.
For sure. And we need to see which companies are out there riding those waves.
Exactly.
And, even with everything we've talked about today, there's always more to learn.
That's so true.
I mean, we've just scratched the surface here.
Right.
So I hope everyone listening will want to dig deeper into ON Semiconductor and everything that's happening in the semiconductor industry. And we've got some links in the show notes to help with that.
Yeah, those are a great place to start. And it's a good reminder that learning is a journey, not a destination.
Well said.
We've given everyone a taste of what ON Semiconductor is all about, but the real exploration starts now. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into ON Semiconductor. We'll see you next time.